Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Rachel Krug, and I'm the CEO of Virtual Field. Virtual Field is an exceptional eye exam experience with visual field, color vision, and pupillometry exams in a comfortable, patient-friendly headset. We do not currently offer an AI product, but we've heard from our community that there's a lot of interest in the subject matter. Therefore, we've invited Dr. Leng to discuss the latest developments and works in progress in AI in ophthalmology on our webinar today. Welcome, Dr. Leng.
Thank you so much for having me, Rachel. It's really exciting to be here.
Yep. Dr. Leng is the Director of Clinical and Translational Research at the Byers Eye Institute at the Stanford University School of Medicine, Department of Ophthalmology, where he oversees more than 50 research programs. Dr. Leng was named one of the top 150 innovators in the field of retina. And today's webinar is going to take a Q&A format. So if you have specific questions, feel free to drop them in the Q&A, and we will do our best to get to them live. If we do not, we will follow up with an email response after the webinar. So to get started, Dr. Leng, tell us briefly an overview of how AI is currently being used in ophthalmology.
Well, yeah, thanks, Rachel. I'm really excited to be here. I've just, as a little bit of background, I've been involved in developing algorithms now for close to 10 years in ophthalmology, specifically looking at ophthalmic images. And I know AI has taken quite a turn in the past 2 years into more of language processing with the generative AI and ChatGPT engines out there. But I think one of the most exciting things happened just a few years ago in the 2018, 2019 arena, where we had the first autonomous AI approved by the FDA for all of medicine, and that just happened to be in ophthalmology. And that algorithm was approved or cleared to diagnose and screen for more than mild diabetic retinopathy in the diabetic population.
Mhm.
Um, and so it's been a really exciting thing to be kind of at the forefront in the field of ophthalmology, to have access to something that's on the market, where we're able to use it in primary care and screen for patients who have diabetic eye disease and get them referred over to an eye care provider for a higher level of care. Um, as you may know, there's 30 million diabetics in the United States, and I think about 80 million pre-diabetics. And this number is only increasing with the kind of the epidemic of metabolic syndrome and obesity that's happening. And we're mandated to do annual screening in all those 30 million patients right now to see if they have eye disease. And 97 to 98% of all eye disease, of vision loss from that eye disease, is preventable if detected early. But sadly, we see patients every day in my clinic who come in for the first time with irreversible vision loss due to diabetes. And it's also unfortunate that in some areas of the country, there's only about a 15%, maybe 30% or even 50% at best screening rate for these diabetics on an annual basis. And so being able to leverage automated technology and providing it in places where patients are being seen, can help to improve that metric, that screening number.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that and for your use cases as well. What exciting developments are in progress or currently being researched with regards to AI in ophthalmology?
Well, as I mentioned before, I think with the kind of like rollout of generative AI and kind of ChatGPT in 2022, there's a lot of new potential for the use of AI um, in our care of ophthalmology. I think the most interesting thing was just the adoption. I think the time to 1 million users of ChatGPT was only 5 days. And it took, other technologies that have rolled out, much longer to reach that thing. And so I think there's that, a desire by society to use AI enabled technologies right now. And, so I think in our clinical care, having AI-based chatbots to help with patient queries, and answer their questions and maybe even schedule them for appointments, I think is is one of the exciting new developments. I think generating content to address their concerns, and also have replies generated for review and then sent out by staff members and physicians, I think is also an interesting use of this technology.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, on the more kind of clinical care and research side, um, we've been using artificial intelligence to help identify features and images now for many years, and that power is only improving over time, so that we can segment and identify areas, regions of interest in images, both in two-dimensional images like fundus photographs or wide field
Mhm.
imaging, as well as in cross-sectional imaging like OCT. Um, and, I think, you know, of course, we certainly want to find the numerical values for clinical trials and biopharma development. But I think in the workflow of our lives, seeing patients every day and our busy clinics, having some automation where AI enabled devices can analyze images that we're typically doing manually right now
Mhm.
and identifying changes or stability, as well as helping with patient counseling, I think, are areas where these things can be improved.
Great. Thank you so much for that. Um, how should a private practice think about incorporating AI into their everyday workflow as the technology begins to develop?
Yeah, I think that's a really great question, Rachel. Having the ability to incorporate AI into your practice, I think is I think top of mind for 2024. I work in a large healthcare system here at an academic medical center and serve on a group of informatics directors, and that is the number one goal for our large healthcare system: is how much AI can we cram into the daily workflow of each individual provider in the organization. And if you go to these large industry meetings like HIMSS and some of the, we use Epic as our EHR. They
Mhm.
have large user group meetings and so forth. That's kind of the talk of the town. Is what kind of AI um, products can we incorporate and integrate into these modules and things that we're using for care. I think in kind of the private practice model, smaller um, groups, I think, we're kind of jealous of those groups because they're a little bit more nimble and can be a little bit more creative at rolling things out, not having to deal with the large institutional overheads and compliance and IT security issues that we have at these large institutions.
Yep.
So, I think one of the things that will be coming out soon, I think, is ability to help with workflow. And you can think about this, as I mentioned before, like if, we get a huge burden of inbound messages and queries and patients at our academic institution. I think we get over 1 million patient emails, a year coming in, and physicians and their assistants have to take the time out of their clinical care to respond to each of these patients' queries. And, of course, it's not compensated in any way. These are, part of the care of taking care of patients. But patients over time in the past 5 years have increased this amount of inbound traffic by 500%. And that's becoming a part of medicine now, is this kind of asynchronous virtual care regime.
Yep.
So, we're doing pilots here right now where we're using generative AI to ingest these messages, draft a response, and send that response to the provider to review. They can either use it as is or use it as a jumping point off. They'll modify it, edit it, and send it back to the patient. And that's been a huge satisfier right now in a pilot we've done here in our institution. So I think that's one thing I think that private practices could consider incorporating.
Great.
Um, I also think that the patient care journey could have some opportunity for automation as well. You look at things that are happening quite regularly and almost you know similarly each time. Like for example, a cataract surgery patient. When a patient is kind of contemplating cataract surgery, there's a certain amount of information they need to get about if it's um, right to have this surgery right now for them. once they made the decision, there'll be some information about the actual procedure itself, the follow-up, the scheduling, and so forth. And then after surgery, there'll be some kind of expected questions and stuff that will come in. So using autonomous systems to help with that patient journey, I think will be a larger point of how we take care of patients in our private clinics. Um, I think further down the road, I think some of the exciting things are, we'll have to do more with actual medical decision making. So using autonomous technologies to actually help with the diagnosis for both complex cases, but also straightforward cases, which will introduce some more efficiencies to our workflows. And then also decision support, where autonomous machines will ingest, again, the historical information you have in your EHR, current data from today's visit, maybe some imaging, and help with the decision of whether we should initiate a new therapy. As a retinal specialist, I do a lot of intravitreal injections, performing probably like 10,000 injections a year. And we have, fortunately, a lot of options right now to treat our patients. But, using some data to help guide, maybe we should switch to a different drug. Maybe we should start a patient on this specific drug because 30,000 prior patients in our practice have had a good experience in this with this drug. And then also with the timing for surgery, when should cataract surgery happen? When should an epiretinal membrane be peeled or something like that? Looking again at historical, we can have some predictive models to help guide our decision of when we should operate on patients. So I think the future is very, very exciting. I think we get a lot of concern, I think, when we have new technology that all parts of what we do might be replaced. But I think AI is not going anywhere. So we all first of all need to accept that it's going to be part of society and medical care going forward. And we need to learn to use it as a tool, just like we use all the other tools we have in our clinics, whether that's an OCT device or an automated perimeter or anything like that. AI is a tool, and it's going to make us better physicians and better able to care for our patients.
That's great. And that was a lot. There's a lot of potential future use cases: diagnosis, decision support, selection, timing for surgery. Um, Probably impossible to stack rank, but of everything you just said, could you distill down a bit? And which of these do you think is most important for private practice providers?
Um, I think it's hard, like as you said, I think it's hard to predict. I think what I said first about just workflow assistance, I think will be probably the most impactful because I think our population is only getting older right now.
Mhm.
And so the demand for our services as eye care providers is only going to increase over time. And there's not enough, you know, eye doctors out there to take care of this population.
Right.
So I think anything that can help with, allowing everyone to operate at the top of their license, which is a term that gets thrown around, so that we can be more efficient, but still provide the care that people want. We're not trying to take time away from the physician patient interaction. We actually want to increase that time by removing all the other things that we that are involved in the care of patient that maybe happens in the non-visit section or the off hours, and
Mhm.
have that be automated, um, and allow us to have more meaningful time with our patients face to face.
Thank you. Well said.
We had a question actually from one of our attendees about what are the potential downsides. I think, of course, there are always downsides with anything, right? And so I think we need to be very cautious about what's being generated and making sure that it's really valid and relevant, right? So we don't want to get into a situation where an AI generates a response to a patient and it's completely wrong, and someone just hits send and sends it out because I think again, we all want to be more efficient and productive. And so there's a tendency just to say, okay, that looks great, and then just set it off without reviewing it. So, when I'm using these technologies, I'm actually doing a lot of checks and balances myself to make sure that we are um, you know, doing things correctly. And so I think there should, be some skepticism with what we're seeing. I think also the source of information that the AI systems are using to generate the the um, the responses and the content, I think needs to be vetted. So if you're using an open source content generator, there could be a lot of things that are incorrect out there that it's using to train and to harvest information. Of course, we've heard of the confabulations or hallucinations that AI systems are making as well. So I think all those things need to be taken into consideration. But I think using a vendor, if you're using a vendor to generate your AI based content, is important to look into how they're making that content and what their business practices are. And I'm sure there'll be, some guidance from larger organizations, maybe federal or state organizations in the future that'll help corral that. Because right now, it's kind of a Wild West thing, but I think in the same way, people also want access to these technologies as soon as they're available.
Great. A couple other questions have come in. One from Dr. Lowe. If there was a product that uses AI to provide clinicians possible differential diagnoses and treatments in real time, do you feel this would be useful for most doctors or mostly for rare edge cases?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and I was trying to hint about that earlier. I think a lot of what we do is done correctly. So, when we see a patient with, new glaucoma, or we see a patient with a new hemorrhage in the eye from macular degeneration, the diagnosis is generally, straightforward to make. And a lot of, eye doctors out there, um, know what they're looking at. So, I don't know if there's going to be a lot of savings both in time and say brain power, and to do that, to have an autonomous system make that diagnosis for you. I think the real benefit is to allow those diagnoses to happen outside of the eye specialty space. So if you imagine a future where there's a camera and or OCT in every general practice office, or even in clinics where there aren't any doctors, like say, you go to an urgent care or a clinic that's in like a large big box store,
Sure.
and there's no doctors there, and you can get an eye scan or an eye photo. And that's the place where I think where diagnosis making could be really impactful. Um, and as far as like the edge cases where it's like hard to diagnose, I think that will also be something that's going to come further down the line, because I think a lot of this is pattern recognition. And so having a lot of training data to get the most robust model out there is going to be the most important. So, if you see 50 million cases of diabetic retinopathy, it's going to be pretty good at picking that up. But if you have some rare infection of the eye that only happens one in, 100,000, the AI one won't be nearly as well trained to make that diagnosis as it will be for making diabetic retinopathy.
Mhm.
And so that will only come with time.
Gotcha. Um, let's take one more question here on cost benefit analysis, particularly with regards to ROI.
Yeah, I think that was from actually about RVUs, which is the relative work value unit that we use in both in large academic settings and in the private world to capture revenue. So fortunately, there have been people have thought about this problem, because I think one thing about technology, new technology that's exciting, is you need to be able to make it viable and self-sustaining. So the first company that got their autonomous AI approved by the FDA for diabetic retinopathy screening also was able to get a CPT code approved for autonomous diagnosis of um, retinopathy. And so that has an RVU that's associated with it for the machine. So the clinic, the primary care clinic that has that box there, actually does capture revenue. What we're also doing in our setting is we have a virtual tele-ophthalmology practice, and there are CPT codes that can be used to capture revenue for remote care based on image review. So, I think this is certainly something that has to go in parallel with the development and launch of new technologies. But I think, that's it's certainly being done, and I think that's that's a great thing because we want this technology to continue to grow and succeed. And so there has to be a business model behind it to support it.
Great. Uh, Last question. So if our providers are just starting to learn about AI, as many are, what resources would you recommend?
There's a lot of information out there, lots of webinars and websites you can go to. One thing that I've been a part of now, fortunately, this is our fourth year. We have an ophthalmic uh, artificial intelligence summit that we host virtually. This year, it's on June 1st, and so feel free to check it out. It's free to register and attend. OphthalmicAIsummit.com is the website. You can also probably search it on Google. And I think one of the keys when we created this meeting actually was unlike a lot of AI meetings that existed before it, it wasn't some sort of pie in the sky. Hey, this is what I'm doing in my research. We really were pushing to have, what is AI doing today to make an impact in ophthalmology? And so that was kind of the thesis for this meeting. And we've had a lot of leaders come and speak. We had the head of the National Eye Institute come, and we've had, CEOs of some of these companies that have had autonomous AI devices on the market come and speak, and as well as some clinicians that are implementing as well. So it's a nice mix of everyone. So I hope that people could attend that.
Yep, that's great. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I actually just dropped, I'm going to drop the link for everybody in the chat so you can check that out for yourself. We are at the 20-minute mark. Dr. Leng, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate having this chat with you. Very insightful.
Thanks so much for having me, Rachel. This has been a lot of fun, and I hope that everyone got some great ideas from it.
See you soon. Thanks. Bye.